joker, and so his humor and lightness is one of the things that I've always enjoyed about him. And it's difficult not to laugh when he's around. So he has a way of sharing truth in a beautiful way that makes everybody relaxed and takes them into the subject in a very creative way. And so the topic that we have thrown to him tonight is what some may recognize also as the title of Gandhi's autobiography, My Experiments with Truth. So what is truth? How do you apply it? Maybe what are the signs that it's working? What are the steps involved? So we'd love to hear your own story of your own experiments. And just a reminder, there is translation into several languages. So just keep the speed of speaking fairly slow, please. So thank you and welcome once again.
Great to see you, Yogesh Bhai. Great to be with everybody. And if any of you have read Gandhi's autobiography, My Experiments with Truth, you will find that what he wrote and what is said today is probably different. Not going to be the same. I'm not going to read from his book. Actually, didn't know that was the title. So already I feel informed about the essence of truth. I've got a resource to refer back to after this is over to see what it is that I didn't say. But moving on with some of the experiences of truth that I was able to create. And I was offered this topic and I thought, well, this is a nice topic to talk about, the experiments with truth. And so I'm in the New York City area. And so I went down after this topic was assigned to a little shop and I bought some truth. And then I thought, well, let me experiment with what I've got. And I put it in water, bucket of water. And nothing happened. Okay, and I put some notes down. And then I put it in some acid, an acid solution. And then I left it for a while and actually it wasn't much acid, it was vinegar, it was 5% acid. So, and there was no change. Nothing happened when I did that. And it's winter here, it's probably winter where you're at also. And we have what we call freezing temperatures, 32 Fahrenheit, probably 0 centigrade. And so left the truth outside in the freezing cold, watched it, observed it, and nothing happened. And I thought, well, here in my lab, let me put some electricity through it and see what happens. And I couldn't tell if anything had changed. So there was no change with those electrodes. And then in the lab, it was on the counter and I dropped it and nothing happened either. So all of those little experiments kind of led me to the conclusion, because we always have hypothesis and then we test that and see what the results are. And then we change what it is that we might believe. And then we test that again until we can figure out and what we think of something, hypothesis, and the tests that we have, they bring us to a closer part of the truth. So what's the truth about truth is what I was working on. And one of the conclusions that came from is that truth is not affected by the elements of matter or nature. And I thought, well, that was pretty powerful. So that eliminates a lot of possible options on the table right away. So that truth is not affected by the material world. That was my conclusion. And if you come up with something different from those same experiments, I'd be very interested to hear about that. And so therefore was kind of proposing another way of looking at things, hypothesis, that what we call truth is actually not a physical or a material item. It is more of a transcendent quality, and it is also something, I'm going to change the camera here, more of an experience or a feeling. Okay, and so I tested that out. Truth is a feeling. And when I interact with individuals, I did this for a week. I've done it before, but I was focused on this. When I was truthful, okay, and I would tell the truth, so that the things that were taking place in my life, that's what I communicated. I tried to be open, clean, honest, aware, however you might want to describe it for yourself. And that's a big part of this process also, is testing qualities on yourself so that you have a working definition. But I was able to tell the truth this week to certain people. And then when I said that and interacted with them, I checked how I felt. I felt pretty good. And then on the other hand, there were some individuals, and this was a test experiment, where I was not truthful. Okay. And they would ask me something, and I didn't give them the same answer I gave to somebody else. In English, I think they call that untruthful, or lying, or deceptive, all sorts of things. And then I checked how I felt when I did that. And there was a difference. I realized that there was a difference when I was aligned with my actions and my words in my communication, how I felt, versus the opposite. When I didn't align my actions and my words and my communication. When it was kind of the phrase telling the truth, there was this lightness and easiness. I didn't have to remember things. Cleanliness might be, that's a theme we've been working on here. Cleanliness is next to godliness. And so there's that sense that I was unburdened, light, pure might be another word for that too. And when I was not so truthful, then I had a different experience. I had a different feeling. That there was more of a heaviness. I knew that some of the things that I said in this case hurt. It hurt people, and I felt bad about that. Not enough to stop my experiments. You know, this was science at work here, God's work, so to speak. So, but I felt a little ashamed, afraid, closed off, and it was a very, very different experience, quite a contrast. And so I thought, well, that was kind of interesting. And I did a different type of a process to see how that worked out. At the same time, for a couple of days, I did my regular routine of brushing my teeth. Right? And I recommend that. Just personal advice, you do what you want. And then there were a couple of days when I thought, well, let me not do that. And it was interesting how when I don't take care of things, there's this buildup, and it didn't feel good. And so cleaning myself with what I say and what I do and aligning is a lot like brushing my teeth. It feels good. And when I am not so honest or truthful and don't align all those things, it's a little like not brushing my teeth. It doesn't feel as good. And they aren't identical feelings. And you're quite welcome to experiment, as I did, with all these aspects. But there's that sense of when I am connected to a quality, that the real sense of measuring it is how I feel. And so when we ask about what is love, or what is peace, or what is truth, or what is this, there really is no material or verbal definition of it. It is more of an experience. And so truth is an experience for me. And because we were experimenting, I bumped into some systems on researching and scientists who do things. And I came across a quotation that was very interesting for me because it kind of ties into how we are going to take this on a spiritual plane. Move on from the material. It's not, truth isn't material. So it's metaphysical, beyond spiritual. And had the great scientist who invented the car, Nikola Tesla was his name. And maybe he didn't invent the car, but he was did a lot of research. And what he said, and I don't have it in a fancy font or anything, so you can write it down or remember it or look it up later. But he said, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, vibrations.
Pardon, Eric, just a request from the translators. If you could be a little slower, please.
Oh, even slower. Okay. All right. So I thought I was doing pretty good. So, but I will see how slow I can go. And you can signal me too. Slow down. That's fine. So Nikola Tesla, famous scientist, a while ago, his quotation, his guidance, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, vibrations. So I wanted to think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibrations, because using that as a guide, I added on to what I have been told most of you who are listening are aware of also. And that would be some of the lessons on spiritual knowledge and what I have learned, and I hope it is not news to you, that I am energy and that I have a vibration and that I have a frequency. I have a consciousness. I am a spiritual being. And in Raja Yoga, Brahma Kumari's lingo, Atma pops in, or soul. And so using the awareness of I'm a spiritual being and that science can explain things through energy, frequency, and vibrations, I thought, well, let me see what I can do with those two principles. How does energy, frequency, and the feeling of truth come to play with me? And so my background is a little bit of research. I was smart enough to know that I'm not very smart. Okay. I recognized that there were lots of other people who were going to do a lot better job at some of the things in the world that are important. And so I realized that no, I don't want to struggle, and I'll let the smart people do the things that they're supposed to. I was wise enough to know I wasn't real smart. But I did get a little training in this and looking at things. And so I want to share a couple experiments that were done and take some lessons out of that. Because if truth is not physical and it is something transcendent, then it has that capability, as Tesla said, of having frequency, vibration, and energy. And so I want to share two short little experiments about how that works. because when you are vibrating at a certain level, there is something called a harmonic. You're in sync with. And a couple different other ways to look at it is water finds its own level. Maybe you've heard that saying. It comes down and water finds its own level, and birds of a feather flock together. And so these are just ways of understanding a very deep and profound principle of resonance. And I'm going to see if I can click on a little video to show you how that works out. And then we'll talk a little about that experiment. I'm going to share screen. See if we've got that. Hold on for a second. It's called Resonance with Pendulums, and it's short, and it's just very simple to understand that they're going to move a heavy pendulum, and there are others hanging on the same string, and the one at the same length will move and the others will not. So let me see if I can share screen too. Can you see the screen Resonance with Pendulums?
Yes.
All right, hang on. So I'm hoping that you would have seen that when they moved one of those pendulum balls, only the one that was the same length started to move. All the others did not, basically. And when they moved one that didn't have a partner, nothing else happened. And so one of the experiments that this would show is that when there is an energy or a vibration, it activates those of like kind. And how I want us to start to think of this is if you are on a spiritual path, if you are looking for something, that you can find what might be truthful to yourself by how you feel when you are around someone or when you are listening to something. And we'll expand a little more on that also. But when there is a powerful motion, it will affect those who are aligned. And that's a big part of the vibration of energy that Tesla wants us to understand. We can be influenced by the vibration, and we will be able to pick up energy when we are similar. That's how truth works. It can be communicated. If you're far away, it doesn't. And so we'll draw a couple conclusions. And now I have another one that I'd like to share. similar but different, and it's quite wonderful to watch. It's less than 2 minutes. But this one is also about pendulums and how energy passes around. So let's see if I can share the screen. And do you see 10 pendulums hanging?
Yeah.
This one might have some music. The other one was pretty quiet. You all did very well. So a few different pendulums in that case, and none of them were the same length. And you could see the interaction or the transference of energy. See if I can, there we go. From one to another. And each one influences the other. And as they go through those quite beautiful patterns, there is a pattern in the chaos. They each affect each other. And so want to have you keep these two pictures in mind. One is how we can be affected by someone who's similar, and how when we're all different, it can be wonderful, but it can be also chaotic in that process. Because if you have been connected to the Raja Yoga Center or some of these things, you might have learned some Hindi words. And one of them translates into English, and I don't know all the other languages that it has, but is vision or drishti. And drishti is an exchange of our qualities. If you can see yourself as a spiritual being with energy, frequency, vibration, peace, love, harmony, truth, and you hold on to that awareness, then when you look at someone, soul conscious to soul, elevated awareness of self and others, you're exchanging, or another way of looking at that is you are harmonizing. And I'm hoping that you have had that practice before and often. But I have gone to the headquarters of the Brahma Kumaris many times, and I enjoy being there because there are some very experienced meditators, souls, and when we exchange that vision, that drishti, something happens for me. That's an experiment that I have undertaken. And I feel that there is a powerful frequency, energy, quality that is exchanged. And it brings me up to that same quality. So, in a way, their vibration makes my string of the pendulum more like them. It's an experiment to spend some time with someone else and harmonizing, exchanging the frequency. Oftentimes we say, oh, it was such a loving glance that I got, or they had such a peaceful gaze. That's true. And that's one realm of vocabulary that can be used by many. But if we're going to be scientific about it today, when we share our vibrations, we can affect each other. And those who are more powerful can offer the experience that they have to another. That's why we practice meditation, eyes open. We are sharing what's going on within ourselves. We're harmonizing. And if you look at the second one, video that we saw, all the balls going back and forth, we can also cause a lot of chaos. And so how do we actually experiment with elevating our vibrations, our frequency? And for me, I experimented by looking around at what I do and how that might be a model of that. And I attend what is called a spiritual study class every morning. I hope this group is also a part of that. And I listen to some words that are spoken along with others. And I start to see that as an experiment to harmonize the vibration of the gathering. Because if you want to break it down, someone has spoken something, someone has recorded that, and someone is speaking that again. And so there's a transference of energy. And when speaking, we all hear that in our class every morning. And so there's a transfer of energy. And so is making each of us, little at a time, every day it adds up. Every day we get more aligned. And the more that we listen, the more that we feel what's going on. And it's not only words, but there's an exchange of energy and frequency in the morning class. And we're all starting to move at the same vibration. And so instead of us all having different lengths of the pendulum and causing chaos and affecting each other and moving around, even though it could be beautiful, it seems to be a little problematic too. But want to say, if you can see morning class as a time of harmonizing, being together, and so that we are able to experience the vibration that the original sender of the message wants us to experience. The truth of the message, and if the term Merly is okay for some of you or all of you, that's what it is. There's a vibration, an energy, a feeling. It comes with words, but it's a truth, and it carries with it both of those qualities, things that I can understand and things that I can feel. And the feeling's the energy of truth. So I want you to experiment for yourselves. When you sit in class, and I hope you are able to physically get to the same room because it helps. We don't these days, not too often. Lots are still on Zoom. But it's an experiment. What's actually happening? And so I have been given guidance that every day it's important to be there, to have the source, the supreme soul, have that vibration communicated so that I can experience that through those words and be more aligned and be more in sync with that being, with that source. And in Merle class, I was paying attention to what happens. I do go to morning class here in New York physically every day. But I want you to play with those terms, Merle. It's a morning spiritual class. Merle's a flute. Flute you play, vibration, energy, and it plays a song. And that song is known as Geet or Gita. And so it's God's truth. It has often been said that the Gita as a scripture has a lot of truth. And so it's the words and it's the feeling. And so if you go into a Merle class or a morning class or a spiritual class, we're actually tuning ourselves. How do I respond to this? How do I feel to it? Am I being elevated or not? And both of those are good experiences. Because if I'm being elevated from what I hear, then I'm in sync and I can feel the truth, the energy, the peace, the love, the qualities that come with that. And if I am not feeling that, there's no bad experiments. Then I'm recognizing that I'm not in sync and I need to tune myself a little more. I need to do something different. What I've been doing has not brought me into sync with God, and therefore I should change something. And those are more experiments. I should change my words, I should change my thoughts, whatever it's going to be. Experiment some more. Because the picture that came to me in a morning class that I attend is a little like an orchestra where the conductor is communicating, but at the beginning, if you've ever been in an orchestra, it's chaos. Everybody's tuning. There's one pitch, and I think it's an A flat, could be an A, that somebody plays and everybody aligns to that. They harmonize, they have the same sense of base understanding. And then they can play music and work with each other. But the Merle class is actually a tuning, an alignment. We hear things and we can apply it. We think the words are the most important thing. But actually, what's going on is that the energy of the truth is being felt by the soul, and we are tweaking ourselves so that, like the first pendulum, what God is saying will move us in the same way. And so the experiment is, well, how do I become more like God? It's a good question. You're going to do some experiments on your own after this, I hope. But one of the aspects, if you've been around for a while and studying, is that there has been the intent that things will get drastically better, change monumentally, when all of us who are trying to align ourselves with the vibration of God, another term for that might be pure, perfect, elevated, soul conscious, lots of ways. But we're supposed to have one thought. We're all to be unified. one frequency, one vibration, one thought. What that thought is, I'm not quite sure at this time, but that we all are to align. And so, do I move into the length of pendulum that God is at? Am I being influenced? Can I share that vision with others? Can I experience through my practice changing how I feel and think and see and act so that it is influenced and harmony and in sync with God? Because one of the titles that I have been told, it's not in my tradition, is that there's a name for God called Satyam, which means truth, the holder of truth, the being of truth. God is truth. And so the experiments with truth ultimately lead us into an experiment with God. And if I'm a spiritual being, God's a spiritual being, I know that the frequencies are the communication, the currency between souls, then I can start to remember who I am, how I work, what's actually going on. I need to hear words. I also need to experience vibrations. There's a big difference in being in the headquarters of the Brahma Kumaris. My past experience of 20,000 people, students studying spiritual knowledge, sitting in a hall silently, aligning their thoughts to their true self, quality of peace, and being in the presence of another soul who is sharing not any words at that time, but the frequency, the vibration, the energy that brings us all in alignment. And it moves us so that we will be in sync, harmonious with the truth. I'd like to share one more aspect of what is said and what I believe is that not only do we align ourselves when we experiment with the higher source, it somehow has an influence on us. But in some of these Murley classes, the source, and I'm going to use the term Baba, hope that's okay with everybody. That's my name for the relationship I have for God. But there's a sense that somehow in the exchange, we not only move to a similarity in being, but that process is through not only drishti, but just our remembrance. And in our remembrance, there's an exchange of energy. And that has a curative, purifying, or as it is often said, rust removing process. And so that connection, that process of meditation, remembrance, Raja Yoga, connecting soul to supreme soul, Baba says that absolves our body conscious behaviors, our sins, things that were done not based on truth. And oftentimes I've been asked to describe who we are, and would say who you truly are is a soul, energy, consciousness, point of light. And God creates us in his own image. So I'm a point of light. God is a point of light. We are personalities distinct, but we can connect with each other. We can have this relationship. And God says, if you remember me, there's an exchange from light to light, soul to soul, and I have the ability and the power to remove what you have accumulated. Remove the rust, absolve your sins, purify. He does that with truth. And I thought, well, that's pretty amazing. What's the experiment with that? And wanted to show kind of a visual representation of a spiritual process. And so if you're okay, hope you're still able to follow, that I'm not too fast or too slow or anything like that. But what we're going to see here now is the process of light, the form of a laser, being shown on things that have accumulated sins or in the physical rust. And that exchange is a pictorial description or a visualization of how, when we have that remembrance of God, what happens to actions that were not based on truth. So let me see if I can share this. Yogesh, do you see a little light and a blue thing?
Yeah.
This is a piece of equipment that has been created, and it is to the machine their God, because it is removing all the impurities. Let's just watch this rust removal through a laser. So I hope that gives you an idea, but I find that to be how truth is communicated through yoga. It purifies, it removes. There's an energy that works in the world. There's an energy that works in the spiritual realm. And so when God says, remember me and I will absolve your sins, that's what happens. There's that sense of they're just being removed by being in his presence and in that remembrance, and allowing that energy of truth, his truth, to come to us and make us free from what it is that might be troublesome, burdensome, and actually not ours. And so the experiments of truth have led me to conclude that it's not physical. The truth is spiritual. It comes in a feeling, and I can be affected by others' vibrations, and I can affect others, and I'm a part of God's plan to be in sync and aligned and be able to energize myself with the power that he has by showing up, participating, and also just remembering. Truth will set you free. And so I'm thinking that there was a time for response. or that there were a variety of comments that others might want to offer at this time. Is that okay?
Yes, firstly, thank you, Professor, for for the experiments. There is one question that's come up here, and if anybody has more questions, please do type them in. I'm going to read this out. So, how can we correct a spoiled resonance which is not in sync anymore when it is being very difficult to get aligned with truth at times?
Yep. Yep. My experience is that we have to do what we can do, and others will do what they have to do. And it is not my responsibility to make others at a certain way. That's actually God's task. But if I cooperate to do what I'm going to do, my experience is nothing lasts forever, and it will change. And if we are able to hold on to our truth of what we're doing and why we're doing it and who we're doing it with, the more we do that, the more we'll move away from the influence. We won't have the effect of the others, and something else will happen beneficially after that too. But to come down to their level or their length and try to fix them, that only makes us descend. As it's often been said, this is the time of ascending. Not everybody has the same path. Not everybody has the same timetable. And so when we are able to have that recognition that I need to take, change, improve, that will not force, but allow others to follow also. So hope that will help.
Okay, let me throw in another question here. You mentioned what happens when we come together, especially when we're in alignment with those who are at a similar length to us.
Mm-hmm.
So this brings to mind the importance of company, good company.
Very much.
And of course, it's one of the 4 pillars of Raj Yoga. So what if somebody doesn't have so much company, good company? Is it possible to make it without good company?
Yes, it is possible. It takes work, more focus on what it is you're trying to achieve. I know that when I go into a crowded environment, the noise and the energy, it's not as easy to meditate or remember God as when I am in a place where everybody is quiet and silent and directing their thoughts in an elevated way. So the circumstances will affect us. One good thing maybe is that you're going to be in a situation, everybody uniquely, that will allow you to take the next step to improve for yourself. So there's not a right or a wrong. Some people who have no challenges don't get tested, don't grow. Some people who don't have the opportunity, and Baba says this sometimes in the Murli, that those who are in the world can go faster than those who are just sitting in a center. And so looking at the circumstances, those are there to make us move for ourselves and advance and ascend appropriately based on who we are. I know that I prefer everybody to get along. I know they don't always get along, but I know that it is a chance for me to everybody or everything and take care of myself. So different situations bring out different qualities for us.
Okay, let me come to the next question here. Somebody asks, is there a link between truth and skill, in brackets, capabilities? Someone who is more truthful, he or she also becomes skillful.
Okay. Interesting question. Good question. I do think that when we are truthful in our actions and communications, that gives us a nice relationship with others, and we get more of a chance. And so that then when we have a chance, we learn through that process, and we do get the skills from that. But skills are different than our innate qualities. Okay. So I might be good with the computer, but that doesn't help me be truthful. And being truthful doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to be a master of computer. But when I am truthful about what I can do with a computer, then I will get better anyway. A lot of talented people have no truth, and a lot of truthful people don't have a lot of skills. So just not lying doesn't mean that you will be great in whatever it is, that you will be great in the Olympics. So there is a relationship, but it comes in a different way rather than a direct, I will be more truthful, I will be more skilled.
Okay, a few comments of appreciation there. Anybody else have a question? Let me throw one more in here. You mentioned the importance of the morning class, the Murli, and you go every morning, and you've been going every morning for maybe 40 years or so, something like that.
37, it's a long time.
Yeah. So question, how do you keep it fresh?
Yeah. I'm in a different place every day. And so what I'm involved with, you can play lots of different ways, but the freshness is in the experience. Going back to my teeth, I brush my teeth, okay? Because I like to feel that way as opposed to not going. And I know that in my lab here and in my living quarters, there is something in nature that I don't know if it was designed to irritate me or not, but I cannot stop dust from settling. It happens. I close the windows and, but there's still dust. It's a part of nature. Things that aren't kept clean, aren't attended to, like brushing your teeth, they get grody and not feel good. If you just live, you're going to have dusty space. There's something in the world that causes things to decay, go down. And I know that that's true for me spiritually. And I need to dust, go to a class, listen to something. And when I start to be engaged, I can hear poetry, I can hear music, I can hear solutions, but I have to show up. And it's a process that vibration is also a part of being a part of the community. And I love that laser video, because when I go and I sit and I remember God, I know that He's doing His work on me. That there's something else happening more than just my efforts. And if I don't show up, it's not going to occur. And one of the other things that personally works for me is to have a place to communicate what I've heard. And so not just listen to myself, oh, I heard that. Yeah. I know that. But who am I going to tell? How am I going to share that? And what is my responsibility? Because then I get a lot sharper. Oh, I have to talk. I have a class tonight, and there's going to be a couple points that I want to clarify. One who sees the three aspects of time, Trikaldarshi. Okay, let me think some more about that. And so that's going to be something to talk about that Baba has brought up in the Murli. And so I need to be available. And another way that I look at the Murli is it's a flute, it's a song, the Geet. And I haven't met anybody who has a favorite song that they listen to only once. Okay? Because when they hear it, there's a feeling, there's a movement, there's something has happened in the listening. And so it's not just the words, it's not just what is being said, but go deeper into a soul conscious state and what's happening. God's exchanging power, something's happening to me from him, and I can feel that, and we can make it alive every day if we want to. Beautiful song.
All right. So, Professor, no more questions.
No more questions. Everybody happy?
I think so. And would you like to see everyone's faces, happy faces?
I would, if they have faces. I don't know what people are like out in that part of the world. So,
well, it's a global family on Wednesdays. So if you go to
right.
Gallery Review, they'll be
Right.
opening their cameras.